This is Binary on Hot News Talk Radio, and live from the Convention Center, the Republican National Convention in Cleveland, we've got Sam Jordan on the air. Sam, thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
So tell us you're going to be giving us reports, by the way, all through the week here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. So we're going to be getting live reports, national reports from the Cleveland Republican National Committee. Tell me about the atmosphere that's been sort of in the air right now. We know it's been pretty tense, to say the least. We've got Bikers for Trump down there. We've got the Black Lives Matter. Have you actually witnessed any of that atmosphere yourself?
Yes, when I was first driving in to Cleveland after getting off the interstate yesterday afternoon, Black Lives Matter was the first group that we saw, with the table selling Black Lives Matter's materials, T-shirts, that sort of thing. There weren't a whole lot of protesters until much later in the afternoon, with a lot of the delegates, checking in at their various respective hotels, and the media, was doing a lot of their checking in yesterday as well. And I know the presence of security and the police is really, really super tight. Basically, a 1 mile radius of the Quicken Loans Arena has been blocked off from any vehicular traffic. The only exceptions to that is with police or EMS or fire, and then also with shuttle buses, because a lot of the different news organizations and the delegates, because of the I believe it's over 15 hotels that are basically hosting all the guests, the news media, and others that are directly associated with the convention. They have to have that shuttle bus service. And last night, they were making a shift change, the police were, and at the Cuyahoga County Administrative Office building in downtown, about 2 blocks from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they were loading up 3 school buses filled with police officers to go and, distribute throughout the downtown area. And like I said, with that 1 mile radius of the traffic not being allowed to, go about and do their commutes wherever they need to go, it really makes it difficult, for you to get around. I mean, the walking isn't that bad, but, if you're an overweight old guy like me, sometimes you got to make a couple stops and catch your breath or get a drink or something like that. But for the most part, I mean, it's pretty civil as far as with the people. They're not as congenial as what you might think. But last night when we were in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, we got to talk with some of the delegates from various states, a lot of Texas, Nebraska, Ohio, Pennsylvania, that we got to chat with. And it just really, the attitudes that they have there, I mean, it's like, we're here, but we want to go through the process and enjoy the moment. With a lot of them that were making those comments and stuff. But so far, it's been pretty uneventful. I mean, the bulk of the business is going to get started here today, more so in the afternoon, and then leading up into the big day on Thursday when the presumptive candidate, Donald J. Trump, will make his acceptance speech. Governor Pence from Indiana is expected to make his vice presidential acceptance speech as the Republican candidate on Thursday evening. And, for the most part, a lot of speakers, Trump related, whether it's business or family, a lot of representatives and senators from the various states. They're going to be speaking throughout these 4 days. And it should be quite interesting. I mean, today's alone is really going to be hitting on Benghazi with former U.S. Navy SEALs, Marcus Luttrell, and other advocates for, talking about, the American heroes that we've had that have fought for our country and stuff. And it will be another issue that will be talking about with various speakers is about the nation's broken immigration system that we'll be hearing about throughout the day today, because they've got themes for each of the days, and today is Make America Safe Again, and there'll be over 24 speakers that will be talking about protecting our country and our citizens by strengthening our military, securing our borders, defeating terrorism, and supporting the people who safeguard our communities.
People kind of forget too when you talk about the Republican National Convention. We, especially those of us down here who are a little bit more disconnected, I guess, from the national scene, we kind of forget that it is a convention in a lot of the traditional senses, just with a lot more security. But there are keynote speakers. There's a lot of people talking there. It's not just Donald Trump and Mike Pence who are going to be there, who are going to talk about whatever they're going to do when I get elected. It's a whole conference for the Republican Party. There are a lot of keynote speakers there. I think today, if I'm not mistaken, Melania Trump is going to be talking at the convention. Is that true? That today?
Yeah, she's slated to speak later this evening. Willie Robertson, if you've ever seen Duck Dynasty on A&E,
oh yeah,
he's going to be there. Governor Rick Perry, from the former governor of Texas, is going to be speaking. Scott Baio, a lot of listeners will remember as Chachi on Happy Days, and
sure.
then eventually Ben Austin and Charles in Charge. He's going to be speaking tonight as well. We're going to be hearing from Pat Smith, mother of Benghazi victim Sean Smith, who was killed during that attack at the U.S. consulate. Also, Mark Geist, John Teagan, Ken Terry and Kelly Terry Willis from the Brian Terry Foundation. A lot of these speakers that I just mentioned are in relation to the Benghazi attack. That is going to be probably some of the biggest part of the day as far as with speeches, and comments that will be made. There's also actors that are going to be, addressing the convention and everything, immigration reform advocates, several of those. Also, the sheriff of Milwaukee County, David Clark, he, is responsible for, getting the Milwaukee Police Department's Intelligence Division to a higher standard that's more in line with the FBI type of tactics and everything, and really taking that by, storm. Also, some authors and commentators. U.S. Senator Tom Cotton from nearby Arkansas is going to be speaking as well. U.S. Senator Jeff Sessions. Melania Trump, the wife of Donald Trump, is going to be speaking, like I said, later on this evening. We've got some former, Army officials that are going to be speaking as well. Just, a whole wide-ranging lineup that's going to be on today's card for the 2,470 delegates and 2,302 alternate delegates from all the 50 states, the District of Columbia, and the 5 territories that we have.
It seems, and maybe I'm just a little bit too young to remember, but it seems like there's a lot more attention being given to this convention than there have been to previous ones. This election seems to be a lot more high stakes for both parties than previous elections have been. Are you getting that vibe too?
Oh yeah, I mean there is quite a bit of tension here in Cleveland. But, this has got a lot of implications as far as potentially with Supreme Court nominees and other key positions within the cabinet for the future. It's not just president, vice president that this election, hinges on. It's the future as far as where we're heading, our country, the direction that we're in right now. We're kind of, at a state where we're going forward in this one direction, or are we going to be losing control or direction? I mean, Britain, is getting out of the European Union. The United States, I don't think was necessarily in favor of that, but, what we do here in the United States plays a huge impact in the world, in politics in particular. So, it's not just Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton. There's a lot more at stake as well.
We're talking with Sam Jordan, who's on the ground now in Cleveland at the Republican National Convention, one of the biggest events now of the year, very determining factor for how the rest of the year plays out, politically, especially. Very high stakes election. It reminds me a lot. I'm a little bit of a scholar of history, I like to think sometimes, and it does remind me a lot of how things were 100 years ago, where things were very high stakes. There are a lot of comparisons between 2014 and 1914, just a high stakes election, very tense time. Of course, we don't have a world war going on yet, but very tense time in world history right now. And this is going to be one of the things that's looked back upon in the history books as a very high tension time for the American public. Something I want to clear up, by the way, Sam, that we've heard about on social media, that it's hard to get firsthand reports of it, because you see a lot of pictures of different things that are going on at the convention. It's hard to say because, especially nowadays with social media, we didn't have this in 2008 nearly as much. But one thing I want to ask as well about, before I get to my main question, one thing I want to ask about is how was first off, how was the concert last night, and how was the security there?
Security was tight. I mean, tight. We had to go through 2 metal detectors in order to proceed down to the event itself down on the lakeshore at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It was held outside on the stage there behind the museum, which if you've ever been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I mean, it is an awesome place to go to.
Oh, yeah.
But the concert venue out behind it on the lakeshore is just a spectacular place. And the Doobie Brothers performed. They did an awesome job. They really, really look old. But they still could sing, and they could still play some good rock. And, it was just an awesome time. And then afterwards, the fireworks show. Mr. Capelli is known for throwing some good fireworks shows. But last night's fireworks show was really just constant big boomers, some really great fireworks that went solid for a half hour. I mean, there was not one dull moment at all in that. But, it was a packed locale last night. And like I said earlier, you had to walk to get down there. And where I had to go from the hotel that's Radisson there in downtown, just 2 blocks back from the arena, then 9 blocks down to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It was a little lengthy of a walk, but the police officers and the other, law enforcement agencies that were there, Ohio State Police, the FBI, Secret Service, I mean, they are very noticeable, the FBI and the Secret Service. And, you knew exactly if you had an issue, you could go to one of those, and they are more than willing to help you. Very strong police presence. I wouldn't say force, but a good presence on hand. I mean, thousands of officers there. And usually there's probably about 6 on each corner of the intersection. That's how much police presence. And then you also had a cop that would be in the middle of the street where he could direct, the pedestrians to walk through, or if you needed to let one of the shuttles by or one of the buses, then, you could do that. But, I mean, security, is in real good shape. A lot of people think that there may be an event that could happen because of what's happened, as of recent down in Baton Rouge.
Of course.
But it won't be for a lack of response time because, like I said, they have got a lot of law enforcement officials at every intersection in that 1 mile radius of downtown Cleveland and the Quicken Loans Arena.
We're talking with Sam Jordan, who's on the ground now in Cleveland at the Republican National Convention. One thing that's been causing, especially on social media, a lot of fervor is in Ohio, where, of course, Cleveland is. There's an open carry law. You can open carry with no problem. And the head of the police union, I'm wanting to say, if I'm not mistaken, actually asked Governor John Kasich, who himself was actually running for nomination in the Republican Party, to declare a state of emergency, to restrict open carry. That hasn't happened as far as I know now. but has there been? Do you think that the situation might be exacerbated by protesters who are open carrying on the grounds now?
Well, I can say this, and I was, around the area quite a bit last night. The only time that you saw a weapon was on the hip of an officer. Didn't see anybody else that was not identified with the police on the back of, their vest or their jacket or uniform or anything like that. It wasn't really much of a presence. Yeah, it was talked about and everything. And when we had updates and stuff throughout the day and evening last night, as well as this morning, we really didn't see a lot of that so far. I mean, that doesn't mean that it won't happen at some point, but even when I was down by the Black Lives Matters area where they were set up, you didn't see anything like that down there as well. And, it may be just overstated more than anything at the moment, but that doesn't mean that we couldn't see it, through the remainder of the convention day.
Sure. Yeah, anything could happen at this point, especially, everyone's sort of on edge after what we just had yesterday in Baton Rouge, what we've had in other locations too. Everyone's sort of on edge. That is interesting to clear up though, because it seemed like, looking at the reports on Facebook, reports with air quotes on Facebook, it seemed like you couldn't walk 10 feet without some, redneck with an AR-15. And I no disrespect to rednecks, obviously. Another thing that we've had on social media that you keep seeing the photos of, very low res photos, of course, is the whole Bikers for Trump thing. The reports from supposedly people on the ground made it sound like there were millions of bikers who were causing havoc. What's your impression of Bikers for Trump at the moment?
They were making their way. There was a big event up in Erie, Pennsylvania, Thursday through Sunday, called Roar on the Shore, which basically was like a mini Sturgis, South Dakota, that was in the Northeast. And they were making their way down from Erie. I mean, we're talking probably about 6,000 bikers that were making their way from Roar on the Shore and going back to their various areas. But a lot of those headed down to Cleveland. And I would probably say, realistically, probably a little over 1,000 bikers that were in and around Cleveland. But, it wasn't really such a huge thing. I mean, as far as demonstration-wise or anything like that, it's just they were very quiet and peaceful for the most part. And wasn't really a big deterrent in any way, shape, or form, just more of a statement of their presence being there. But like I've said before, within a mile of Quicken Loans Arena or anything where the event's going on with the RNC, there wasn't any vehicular traffic. So that's why I'm saying it was kind of a quiet protest or statement being made here at the RNC.
So with that 1 mile radius, I guess that would include motorcycles as well. So there really couldn't have been much of a demonstration with bikers, other than you'd see a sea of leather, and that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, that was the bulk of it. I mean, they had their bike, positioned as near as they could get, but like I've said, many times here, within 1 mile of Quicken Loans Arena or anything of the facilities that are hosting events like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or the other convention center type places in downtown Cleveland, no vehicular traffic whatsoever, other than what has been allowed as far as with the shuttles or public safety, police, fire, EMS. That's about it.
So out of the, we're talking with Sam Jordan, who's on the ground right now in Cleveland at the Republican National Convention. I imagine you mentioned you talked to some of the delegates. What's your impression so far of the gentlemen you've spoken to and ladies as well you've spoken to?
A lot of them, feel like, they're comfortable with Trump. I mean, there's been some rhetoric that there may be, a ploy made for, another candidate possibly. But for the most part, everybody is, on the Trump bandwagon.
Or at least pretending to be.
It is what it is. We started with 16. It looked like we were going to have a 17th jump in there possibly, but that didn't happen. But I think everybody's pretty much on board, even when you've got the political power people in D.C. Finally gradually coming on board. I mean, they're still not totally happy, I don't think, with the Trump presumptive nomination, but it is what it is, as they say. But, in talking with the delegates last night, they're at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they're there to get business done. They've got an agenda on hand as far as some particular issues that they want to work on. And Reince Priebus, the RNC chairman, wants to make sure that, those issues get taken care of by the 2,400 plus delegates that are there. And then the 2,300 alternate delegates from all the various territories and the District of Columbia and the 50 states, in trying to make America better again. And, it's a tall task, but, Cleveland is getting their turn right now, and Philadelphia will get their turn here before long with the Democrats. But, everybody's got their agenda and, trying to make America better again.
Yeah, that's, I guess you can't really blame them. That's just to be expected. People have different opinions. We've got about 3 minutes now, Sam. Are there anything else you want to mention that you've noticed so far at the Republican National Convention in Cleveland?
Just, a lot of good camaraderie, I guess you could say, as far as with people that haven't seen each other in a while, and with the delegates, because with their identification that they have on, who the delegates are and stuff. And a lot of them, when you're kind of standing back a little bit, it's like, hi, I'm Joe Brown from Texas, and you're from what state? And they'll just kind of mingle and interact without really much fanfare of sorts. And, then they'll start talking about particular party views and stuff that they have on the different subjects. So, it's not a bad situation. I mean, like I said, the delegates have their own special identification that they have, and like us with the news media and stuff, we, have our own blue tags that we have. And like last night's event, we had a special ID badge that you had to have or you weren't getting in. And I know I was fortunate to be able to get mine, but it was based on a first come, first served basis. And they wanted to try to keep it to where they knew, certain individuals, because I had to go through a Secret Service check in order to be able to get credentials for this. So, they are very well scrutinizing every individual that's going to be in and around Cleveland. You really got to have a reason to be there.
Well, I'm glad you're there, because I don't think I or my boss here will be able to make it through through the Secret Service check. We're a little bit inflammatory over here, but I'm glad you're on the ground. I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. Sam Jordan. Yeah,
I know Mr. Capelli would have a very difficult time getting through on the Secret Service check, but that's story for another day.
That's for another time. Maybe we'll get him on to talk about that sometime. Sam Jordan on the ground in Cleveland at the Republican National Convention. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you a little bit later in the week.
All right. Have a good day.
You too. That's Sam Jordan. He's on the ground at the Republican National Convention in Cleveland. We're going to be giving you reports from the ground in Cleveland throughout the week. We are extremely fortunate to have a reporter on the ground who actually did make it on the first come, first serve basis. It's been an extremely heated environment, although not as much as you might think listening to social media. Sam has indicated that it's really not as bad as we might have been led to believe, going based on media reports and going based on what people post on Facebook. They act like the open carry thing's been causing, almost it to come to blows. It seems like Black Lives Matter versus the Bikers for Trump has been causing almost a race war in the Republican National Convention. From what we've heard from Sam Jordan, who's actually on the ground, who we can trust, it doesn't seem that way. It seems like albeit more high stakes, a pretty normal Republican National Convention with very high security, very scrutinizing there. Police seem to be doing a great job. Secret Service as well. And it takes a lot to get me to say that. So it's true. This is Binary here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, hotnewstalkradio.com. Colin Cowherd coming up next here on Hot News Talk Radio and hotnewstalkradio.com.